And it looks like you guys are starting to chime in. Perfect. Well, to get things kicked off, I want to first off welcome some new advocates. We've got several new advocates from some of our new acquisitions that we recently have. I know we have a couple guys from Jarvis joining in for the first time. And I know that we have a few other advocates that are new to the program that are joining. So first off, welcome to all you guys. So as we get going into this, well, as always, what I like to do, let me make sure I get my screen advance real quick, which it's not. There we go. So what I like to do usually right off the top is allow our president to jump in here real fast and say a few words to kick off our meeting. Tom, I am hoping that you are on the line and can jump in real quick.
Can you hear me okay, Colin?
I can, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm having a little technical difficulties with my video this morning, so I'm sorry, everybody, but it's probably good that you can't see me. Mom always said I wasn't built for video. So good morning, everyone. I appreciate you all joining us today. We're glad to have some of the Jarvis team members join us as well. I just wanted to quickly give you all an update. Number one, from a safety standpoint, the thing that I'm constantly thinking about day in and day out and what keeps me up at night is how are we doing health-wise with COVID-19. I am pleased to say through this morning, over the last 7 days, we've had 0 positive tests for COVID-19. So clearly what you're doing out in the field, what you guys are advocating at your branches and general managers, what you're focused on, seems to be working in the last 7 days. But I caution everyone, we're not out of the woods yet. Don't let your guard down. This is a pandemic that is not easily to defeat, but we have to stay on our tippy toes each day, and we have to protect and watch out for the safety of all of our employees to the very best we can. But I wanted to share that bit of good news with you. From a company perspective, we continue to do well financially. We're on budget. We have been on budget every month since March. COVID-19 jobs and what you are all doing out in the field are doing well for the company. I kind of look at C19 very similar to how I look at storms. It's an event. It's something that we do. We don't run away from things like this. We run to it. And because of your efforts and your commitment, the company's doing well. We have also completed, so far 3 acquisitions this year, starting with in Carolina, with our acquisition there in Charlotte, Jarvis, and then just recently FireDex in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So the company's growing branches around North America. We have more to come. We're building up our funnel, and we've got exciting times ahead of us in this company as we continue to grow. And this team here, your role is going to play more and more each and every day, because as we grow, we have more people and more opportunities for failures or accidents. So this team's going to be more critically needed as we grow, and look forward to good work coming from all of you. I want to tell all of you, thank you for the hard work and what you're doing for the organization. I see it daily, and I wanted to recognize it with all of you today. So thank you for everything that you're doing. We appreciate the hard work. Back to you, Colin.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom. So right off, just kind of some housekeeping things. I think just about everybody is currently on mute. Those that did actually call in, I did mute you. I don't know if you can take things off or not, but as we're going through here, I'm going to encourage you to do 2 things. First off, utilize the chat function a little bit. I'm going to try to ask a few questions that will encourage you guys to utilize this function.
Okay.
At the same time, if you have questions,
Is the PM still there?
hold on one second, guys. If you're okay, so as people come in, I will try to mute them. Just so if you don't mind, guys that are listening, keep your phone on mute. If you have a question, if you want to interject, if you want to make a comment, take yourself off mute and please chime in. Because again, this is for you guys. This is to help you out in the field to make us better as a company. This is not just for me to be up here kind of talking to you guys. So I do want your guys' interaction. All right. So that being said, let's go ahead and get going into this meeting. And Tom, you kind of touched base on some of what I was going to touch base on, but it's great because I'm going to share a little bit different information that also supports what Tom just said. The main thing we're going to talk about today is hazard communication. What is it? What is it about? This is something, those that have been in previous meetings probably remember me mentioning, this is something that's always bothered me as a company that we've never been good at. And we're going to put some things in place so that hopefully going forward, we can start to get better. And then, 6 months from now, we're going to be phenomenal at hazardous communication and make sure people know how to communicate and how to actually understand what chemicals they're talking about. And those that don't understand hazard communication, that's what we're talking about. What chemicals are we using? What are the hazards associated with individual chemicals and different things we're utilizing? And how do employees learn to make sure they're doing it safely, whether it be us training them how to use it safely or them being able to find their own resources. We're going to touch base on homework that we did, where we stand with how everybody participated. And then we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing over the next couple of months, because we're going to kind of slow things down a little bit and kind of change pace just a little bit. So we'll talk about that plan as well. So going on to COVID, Tom mentioned over the last week that we have not had any new cases. And if you can look at my graph, if you can see my cursor, hopefully you can, August 9th, right there in the bottom down there, is actually this week. And to date, knock on wood, we have not had any new cases this week, which is phenomenal. And you can actually see the trend that at the beginning of July, we actually had a peak as far as cases throughout the entire company, and it has slowly been tapering off, which is great. And again, a lot of this comes from you guys out in the field. To date, as a company, we have had a total of 44 positive cases, and I can speak that most of those 44 cases have returned to work. We only have a handful that tested positive that are actually still out of work right now. So again, the things that are key you guys are doing, I'm going to harp on it because I'm a firm believer that if we continue to stay diligent over the next coming months, especially now that school's going back into session and there is a possibility that this thing can start to spread even more dramatically, we want to make sure that we continue to check our symptoms, temperature, and everything else. And if employees are not feeling well, let them stay home. Don't give them a hard time about staying home. Wearing our masks, social distancing, and constantly cleaning our vehicles, cleaning our facilities, staying diligent. This is how we're going to beat this. Another quick update for those of you guys that are involved with large losses, that are, especially when you have big BMS cat coming into your region doing work, or we all know we're right there at the edge of the hurricane season. So if we have a major hurricane and we start mobilizing, we have a little subcommittee that we are working on protocols on how to make sure we keep all of our employees safe. And when big cat comes into your market and they have a bunch of people staying in the hotels, protocols to make sure that they are doing things right to make sure we don't continue to spread. So those are just some of the things that we're working on, some things coming, and wanted to share with you guys. So the next housekeeping thing I want to do, and this is a shout out to Crystal. And Crystal, as most of you guys know, she manages all of our risk, all of our insurance, all of our workers' comp claims, and everything of that nature. So a couple things that we wanted to harp on this morning is at each location. I know I have some GMs on the line and some ops managers and a variety of different people. Make sure your safety advocates are involved with safety issues. If you have an auto accident, you have somebody gets injured on the job, make sure they're aware of it. Again, we're not asking for the safety advocates to handle all the paperwork and do all the work and reporting. We're asking to make sure that they make sure it gets done, and also to make sure that they're involved with the process so that we have somebody that can contribute to this council as we start doing more features and getting more input from the field, that they know exactly when somebody gets injured. On that note, when somebody is injured and if you're not able to accommodate employees' restrictions, please notify Crystal immediately. And for clarification on that, and Crystal, if you want to chime in here, please, because I know this is your deal. Do you want to kind of touch base on kind of what you're seeing and what you're exactly wanting?
Yeah, absolutely. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. So to kind of expand on that, it's not just when we're not able to accommodate restrictions, it's if the doctor takes them off work as well. So we've had a couple of situations where that information has not been communicated to me. And I've had a couple of guys sitting out of work for 3 weeks without getting any pay before I find out, hey, we're not accommodating them. I always try to reach out to the field and get verification that we are accommodating. But it is helpful that as soon as that happens, if it's being communicated to me, just so that there's no gap in these folks' pay, just so that they're not sitting at home wondering, how are they going to make their bills because they're not getting a paycheck in.
Cool. Perfect. All right. So if you have any questions about any of that, please reach out to Crystal. That is what she's here for. And yeah, just make sure you're communicating all that information with her, because if she doesn't know, then it puts us behind. So, all right. So now that that is done, let's start talking about our hazardous communication program. So before we get into it too far, I actually want to call this a game, call this what you want, but on this screen right here, I have listed actually 10 of the top cited OSHA things that OSHA cites companies for. And these are different categories. And what I'd like to see from you guys utilizing this chat function is, what do you think the number one thing that OSHA cites companies for? What is the number one thing that you think that they do, that they cite people for? And I'm going to give you a little hint. It's not hazardous communication. But what do you got? Utilize the chat function, pop in there, I want to see what you guys think. We got ladders. We have fall protection. We got 2 people for fall protection. Lockout, tagout is another one that you guys are putting in there. So I'm going to give it just a second for people to kind of chime in here. Well, we a couple of us went through this exercise yesterday, and believe it or not, electrical hazards came up pretty high, which is the one that we have here. And I'm actually shocked, and I'm very pleasantly surprised that a lot of you guys have actually said the number one thing is fall protection, which is the number one thing that OSHA cites people for. The number 2 thing that they cite people for is hazardous communication. And what that is for is a lot of it has to do with lack of training, meaning companies don't train their people on the chemicals they're using. So people end up utilizing a chemical improperly, and maybe they're using coil cleaner or they're using something else, and because it's very acidic and very toxic and very corrosive, they get injured, and that's why people are getting cited. So number 3 on that list, of course, is scaffolding, which we don't do a whole lot of. I'll jump back up to number 1 and also mention fall protection. We do some fall protection. It's not like we do it day in, day out, but we do it, I realize, and clean. So, but number 4 on that list, which I thought was very timely, is respiratory protection. Now, this is what we covered back in June and also covered it again in July with PPE. But you can see probably the 2 biggest things on this list, hazardous communication, respiratory protection. That's where we're focusing a lot of our time and effort, and we want to make sure we stay diligent on that, because the last thing we want to do is actually get cited for one of these. So what are we doing about this? So the safety committee, and just like every other meeting I've showed you guys, I've gone in and shown you the chapters. Have we rewritten the chapters and everything else? This month was a little bit different. So Tom Snow and I went through and rewrote the entire chapter on hazardous communication. And then as we started building out training and started doing a little bit more research and kind of making sure that we were putting together the correct product for you guys to have and correct information, we actually realized that we have to completely rewrite what we currently have and how we're kind of doing things. And kind of give you a perfect example. If you look at this screen right here, those that can see, you can see those little icons that are on the front page of our hazardous communication program. On the screen here, you'll see what was the old way of labeling chemicals, and you may still see some of these labels from time to time. But now on the right-hand side of my screen, you will actually see what OSHA is deeming, the pictograms that OSHA is deeming should be on all chemical containers. And hopefully you guys have seen some of these on some of your containers. I know there's lots of different guidelines and different rules, but especially on shipping containers and especially on portable temporary containers, OSHA is saying that we should actually have these icons on there. So here's the next little quiz for you guys. What is this system called? Can anybody out there, now several of you guys have recently gone through your OSHA 30 training, and I want to see if anybody can either give me the acronym or if anybody remembers what these pictograms, what system this is called. And I'm seeing radio silence in the chat box right now, which is fine. And that's kind of proven my point is we have, as a company, and as long as I've been with the company, close to 14 years now, I haven't seen a lot of this training. Even when we go on big CAT projects, we haven't seen a lot of this training. And part of this gets to the point where it's confusing and it's difficult, and therefore we have a tendency not to actually utilize or actually do training on it. So again, we're trying to simplify that as much as possible. So these pictograms are actually called part of the global harmonization system, which is what OSHA recognizes for labeling of containers. Now, there are several other programs that are out there. We're going to touch base on those in a minute. But GHS, the Global Harmonized System, is something I'm hoping in the next few months that you guys will be able to roll off your tongue. Because again, I hadn't seen anybody chiming in the chat function, but again, that just kind of proves the point of where we're at with chemical training. So what have we done? Well, this is an evolving process. We realize there is a variety of training we have to do. We need to make sure that our safety manual is updated appropriately and mirrors what we are actually doing in the field and mirrors all the training that we are putting together. So we are working to finalize that information, which is why we're going to actually this month and rolling into September, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, we're going to kind of we're going to slow down all this process of just throwing stuff at you guys constantly. We're going to slow down and we're going to kind of do a little bit of a recap and make sure we fine tune things as we move forward, especially as we realize we may have hurricane situation coming up and people are going to be scattered all over the country, or not scattered, extremely busy, because either your employees are going to be leaving or because they're going to be leaving to go to hurricane work and you're going to have fewer people at your office, or a lot of you guys may be actually mobilized to wherever the community-wide event may be. So the first thing that we actually have that we're rolling out for you is this training. And the one thing I'll say about this training, this is probably the most fun training that I think we have when it comes to awareness. I think it's the easiest training probably to teach. It's pretty straightforward. It's easy to utilize, and it is extremely informative. Of course, that's my opinion. I welcome your guys' opinion once you guys get to utilize it. But this training module, which if it's not already on Caddo, will probably be on Caddo today in the same awareness section. Of course, you have your PowerPoint and you have your presenter notes in there, but it has videos in there. It has actually 2 videos. It kind of explains what the global harmonized system is. It also goes through and explains the pictograms. And you'll notice at the very bottom left of my screen there that you actually have matching. So what that is referring to is the way the presentation is set up is designed to be very interactive with you and your team. So it basically requires them to match or help kind of this pictogram goes to which which what does it mean? So it kind of helps train them after they watch a video to recap on what they're doing. And the thing that I think is probably the best out of this entire program is the interactive learning module, which actually takes an SDS sheet and breaks it down section by section and allows you to go through section by section and ask key questions to make sure that the employee understands it. And this program has been rewritten so it actually follows Shockwave. So that is, I picked Shockwave because I felt like that is a chemical that almost everybody touches at some point within the company. It's something that we use very widely, but it's something that I don't know that we all understand the hazards associated with it. So so that's why it's been keyed off that. Part of the way the process works is that we ask everybody to access this SDS sheet, and we're going to talk about in a second about the two different options to access it. One would be, of course, the obvious one would be to print it off, but that sometimes can be, at least in the past, can be difficult to locate and actually have easy access to. So I'll touch more on that in a second, but essentially the way this training is being set up is we do have it set up for group presentation. So you have the PowerPoint with the presenter notes like I talked about a minute ago. I do realize that creates some challenges, especially in the COVID day and time and everything else. So it is difficult to get people into groups and be able to have them in front of a TV. So it may have to be small groups or things of that nature, small in front of a TV or in front of a screen, so they can see the video, so they can do the interaction that's associated with that. So as part of that, what we're actually working on right now, which I'm hoping to be out next week or so, is individual online interactive training that mirrors our current present awareness training, that you can have one-offs, that people, especially with new employees that come into the company, can go get training done before they actually handle chemicals. And I'm sure most of us know, although again, it's something that we've never had a good system in place to make sure that they adhere to. But before anybody touches Shockwave, before anybody touches any chemicals, we're supposed to make sure that they know where to find it, how to access their SDS sheets. They're supposed to understand what they're utilizing. They're supposed to make sure that they're using something that's corrosive or hazardous to their health, that they understand what PPE they should be wearing. And that's why we have this individual training. So when you have a new hire come in, it's difficult to stop down and have a presentation, do one-on-one on training, whereas the online training, which we'll have up and live here very soon, will allow you to do one-off and one-off trainings on that. Earlier this week, shifting gears just a little bit, that I rolled out ethics training, or I should say, rolled out ethics training to the entire company. Those of you that have completed it, first off, thank you. Currently to date, only about 200 of our 1,200 employees have completed it. So if you haven't done it, please take a minute and do it here over the next couple of days. And if you have questions how to do it, reach out to me. But that training is very similar. The interactiveness and everything else that forces people to be engaged with the training is exactly how this online training is going to be for hazardous communication. It's not going to be just one person watching a video type. It doesn't work that way. It's very interactive. So, and it has systems in place to make sure that they are comprehending their information. So moving on, this is a picture of actually San Francisco and what they have done with their SDS sheets. So I've got a question for you guys. Again, utilize your chat function. Where is your SDS sheet in your office? And GMs and ops managers, I'd love for you to chime in as well. So utilize the chat function. Do you know where, if you needed to get a copy of Shockwave or any of our degreasers, where would they be at? And I see that Harry right there chimed in, said that in trucks and in the front office. That's great. And that's where we want to make sure that it's being kept, is some place that employee can easily access anywhere they can. I love it. And some people are saying that they are actually carrying it with them at all times. So the point of this is, if you're having to stop and think about where your SDS sheets are and how to access them, what are your employees? Where are they thinking that these are at, and or do they even know what SDS sheets are? So one thing that we've done, actually you can see at the very top there. So this is another interactive thing that I'd like you guys to do. If you're on your computer, if you're on your phone, I'd like everybody to pull out your phone or on your computer and go to bmscat.com/SDS. So what you'll see when you go to that, first off, if you're calling in, I'm going to repeat this again. It's bmscat.com/SDS. And this is going to be something that we're going to start promoting. What you will see when you go there, you'll actually go to our website and you'll see a link here that says click here for the latest and greatest SDS sheets. We are starting to collect in one place with easy access for all of our employees to be able to obtain SDS sheets for whatever chemical they may be working on. Currently, this is just a link. They are working on API feed, or that's just basically, and those that don't know what API feed is, a fancy way of actually embedding it into our website so that we can easily access this. It's going to be a little bit prettier once I get this up and running. But I want to stop right there and kind of turn this over to Tom Snow if he can jump in. Tom, you and I were talking the other day, and you gave me some perfect scenarios about why this would be helpful, especially with our clients. And this is a link that you guys can share with our clients as well. Tom, would you mind, if you're still on the line, would you mind chiming in and kind of reiterate the story that we talked about the other day?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah, guys, this section and what we're doing right here is probably, as an advocate, is probably going to be one of your most requested and your most demanded sections you're ever going to use in a field perspective. It's one of the few sections as the advocate you most likely are going to be working with the customer direct in especially in the beginning in the setup to do the tone. So some quick examples, like in San Antonio, they had a job where they were working with Caterpillar. Justin could probably chime in and say how nice of a job that was. But in the beginning, it was a little rough with Ryan, the previous GM, and me. We had a bunch of chemicals. We had to get a bunch of SDSs. Had to get all the HAZWOPER program, all the awareness training, all in the beginning. And really, what that did with that local Caterpillar safety rep is kind of set up a weird tone. He because we weren't prepared, because we weren't set up in the beginning, he had a lot of questions about us. So put us behind the eight ball. With the program that Colin's working on, this should be really simple. It should be a quick grab and give, and that'll be amazing. We had that similar situation in Lejeune. We showed up there, had 18 buildings. The safety rep showed up, went into our job trailer, looked at every piece of chemical we had, made a list, and shut down the job until we had everything presented to him. All the vendor portals that we do, that's one of they have two large sections in most vendor portals that I've worked on that just talk about HAZCOM and your SDS in your folders. So this is in a field perspective, this is a very important section.
So again, realize that this thing is an evolving program. So it just got launched. It's tied currently, like I said, to a Box account so that we can constantly be updating it. And Kevin asked a question: do we need to report back to anything that's not currently in this list? So the answer is yes. And you know what, Kevin, your timing was perfect. Great segue into something else I want to touch base with you guys on. So this is absolutely not a complete list. This list, it covers pretty much all the chemicals that you were to order from Tom Snow and have him ship out to a job site or ship directly to your office. What it's missing is chemicals that may be coming from Fiberlock or carpet cleaning chemicals you guys may use. So things of that nature, we don't have an accurate list. That's why this thing is going to have to grow and make sure that we have a list that is compatible for all locations that all you guys can utilize. Otherwise, you're going to be missing something, and that's the last thing we want. So to that point, the very first thing that you should see at the very top, there should be a list of chemicals. And part of OSHA's requirements with SDS is that you have a list of chemicals and then have associated SDS with each one of these. So this list, part of what we're going to ask your homework assignment to be is to pull this list for your office. You guys should have most of these. I realize Jarvis and some of the other newer locations that we've just added may have something completely different. What we're going to ask you to do is complete this list with every chemical that you guys currently utilize in your facility. And then what we're going to do, and then we're going to ask you to send it back into at safety, and we're going to start trying to make sure that we're compiling a list to make sure that we have everything in there. Now, I also realize that this thing may get very, very long and difficult to navigate. Right now, we only have about 20, 25 chemicals on there. But again, we want to keep it easier. So this is actually version 1 of our attempt to do this. There may be other, depending on how things go, we may have to change the program and tweak it a little bit and break it out by location. There's some logistics to all that, but those are things that we are considering, realizing this may get huge. And so we're working on that. But the first step before we can go anywhere is we need to know what chemicals we're working with. So that's going to be your homework assignment number 1, is to do this over the next couple of weeks, is go through your list. A lot of you guys may be able to walk to your SDS books and copy that list and just verify that if there's nothing on there that you've recently purchased in the last month or two that needs to be added. Other locations may not have an accurate list. So that's why we're going through this exercise, to make sure that we have this information so we can provide to your employees. And I will tell you, the hazardous communication awareness training actually points people to this website and kind of educates them on the website. And I mentioned that one of the exercises is that we're actually going through the SDS sheet for Shockwave. So you have 2 options on that. One is print out copies of Shockwave and hand it out to all your employees as you're going through this training, or have them pull it up on their phone and have them follow along with you so they can get used to how to utilize their phone and how to access these SDS sheets and know where they're at. So if they have a question about something else they're not familiar with, they can go in there and actually look for themselves, and they're not constantly having to go ask supervisors or ask other people, or worse, they just completely ignore it and they just kind of go about using it. And the next thing you know, it's getting splashed in their eyes, or they're burning themselves or something like that. So teach them how to access this. And to Tom's point a minute ago, share this link if you want to share it with a customer and you want to give them access. None of this stuff is proprietary. This is all stuff. We're just compiling everything into one location for everybody. So if you have a safety person on a job site that wants to know what our chemicals are or where we store that, show this to them. All right. So one of the things that Tom and I are going back and forth on, and we've talked about this for years, we've never had a good solution, is what do we do about bottles? What do we do about spray bottles? What do we do about other containers that we put on trucks to make sure things are labeled? We are currently looking for the best solution on that. There's a couple different ways that we can label things. There's pros and cons to all of them. These are some of the different labels that we're looking at, several of the different systems. Some are OSHA compliant. Some OSHA says, yeah, it's acceptable, but it's not what we prefer. And we want to make something that's super easy for all you guys, and something that we can, again, start building into just our culture, that we're constantly labeling stuff. So that's why we don't have a solution for this right now for you guys, but this is something that we're going to continue to look at. And here in the next week or so, a couple of you guys will probably hear from one of us. We're going to form a subcommittee. So whenever we start to develop whatever our label system looks like, we want input from the field. I don't like the idea of just coming in here and say, hey, here is Colin at corporate or Tom Snow that's telling you got to do this. We want your guys' help on designing the best system and making sure that we have everybody's participation in it. So just know that we are working on this, and we would encourage, if we reach out to you, please be prepared that we're going to ask you just to do maybe a couple little extra things to make sure that we can get a good system in place so we have something going forward. So, homework assignments. Here's what we're going to ask that you guys do over the next couple weeks. First off, conduct a HazCom awareness. Again, we will be launching the online version, so that will be one option, especially with everything that's going on. So you can help drive that as an option, and that will be something that people will be able to do on their phones if they have a smartphone, of course. And they can do this remotely. They can do it. You can really spread everybody out. If you have the option to set up a system or a video screen or something like that, that would be ideal. You can do it in groups, bring them in small groups. I'm going to leave it up to you guys to kind of figure out the best way to do that. But that's something that we're going to try to strive to make sure that we get this awareness completed and get it rolled out. The other thing is the chemical list that we talked about a minute ago. We're going to ask that you guys go through and actually create that list and make sure you send it to @safety so that we can compile it to make sure that we have all the chemicals that we need on bmscat.com/SDS. And the final thing we're going to ask of you guys, and again, we want to start making sure this is part of our culture that we do on a regular basis, is we are going to ask that you guys continue to send us 4 JHAs a month, and this is going to be a standing request. And again, we like to see once a week. Essentially, take a job, break it down, and again, this is not paperwork for you guys just to be filling out for busy work. This is something that should be part of your training culture, something that you should be involving your team to make sure that they complete this, or make sure they understand what the hazards are and what the precautions are to make sure that nobody does get injured. So start getting in the habit of doing this. Include your team. You don't have to be a part of every one of these, as long as from your location we're getting these turned in. And if you need help with them, reach out to us. One thing that Tom Snow and Crystal and I are working on is a system so that we can review these and give hints, and to have a resource to help you guys make sure that we get very proficient at this, especially as we move into CAT situations, hurricane scenarios. This is going to become even more important that we involve our team and our temporary laborers and everybody else to make sure everybody understands what the hazards are associated with it, with the job you're working on. So this is from Jeremy James. Jeremy, this is for you. Essentially, one thing that was asked is, where do we stand in regards to homework getting turned in? I will say, for the most part, the majority of you guys have done a really good job as far as turning in your homework, up until all the way through to the point we got JHAs. Last month, I know you guys are extremely busy. I know that you have a lot going on, but last month we actually only had 4 locations that turned in their awareness training. Now, I'm hoping some of you guys did it and just didn't get it sent to get it turned in so that we can get you credit in the system. But currently only have 4 locations, Houston, DFW, San Antonio, and Cleveland, that got their training, their PPE awareness training completed last month. And actually all 4 of these people also, and I kind of sent this out last minute, about halfway through the month, asking for 2 GHAs. These 4 locations also did GHAs. And out of everybody that I had, that's all that I have record of. And if I missed you, I apologize, and I'll make it up to you next month to make sure you get credit for it. But this is all that I'm seeing in the system. So we need to make sure that we roll out this awareness training, and we need to make sure going forward with these new homework assignments that we are diligent at making sure that it happens. So that being said, I actually want to stop for a second and just kind of talk about training in general. And this is going to wrap things up. We're almost done, but I do want to take a moment and kind of harp on this for a little bit, for a second. So why do we train? Why do we need training? It's hard to do. I get that. It's time consuming. It is something that, you have to stop down. You have to get everybody together. It's difficult to do because of the COVID situation and social distancing and all that. And man, you got your ops managers that are yelling at you, got to go. But this is where, as a company, as a culture, we need to slow down and make sure that we're putting emphasis on training in general. Why? First off, if you don't have people that know what they're doing on the job, they get frustrated. If they don't know how to properly do something, they're not going to be a happy employee, and you're going to actually have higher turnover rates. It is proven all over the place that if you train your employees, they understand what they're doing, they're more likely to be happy. They're going to have a higher confidence level, and they're going to perform better. If you don't, they get frustrated and they're more likely to leave. So training is important because it keeps your employees happy. What about production rates? I know sometimes we just need warm bodies out there, and we have none of you guys do this, but the mindset I've seen in other companies is we just need somebody out there that can shovel this or that can clean that or whatever the case is. If you're just sticking somebody in without properly training them and they're just using them as a warm body to get work done, you're not going to be productive. And if you're not being productive, you're not being efficient, customers are going to realize it. Your production rates, because again, the whole goal of everything we do is we sell a job and we want to make sure we get it done as efficiently as possible to get people back in business, and also to make sure that we're keeping our margins where they need to be at. So if we don't slow down and take time throughout a employee's learning cycle and actually train them on how to be a productive employee, it's going to suffer, and it's going to suffer from a lack of production. And what about unsafe work environments? I had a conversation just the other day with an advocate, and we're talking about the fact that I know I do this. I'm sure you guys do this as well. We forget what we think is common knowledge is not common knowledge to everybody else. And as employees are working, they actually realize they don't know that they should keep their site clean. And I'll use as an example, we had in one location, we had 2 employees on the same day step on a nail from construction debris that was basically not cleaned up as they went and not kept safely. Again, the whole point of that is what we deem as common knowledge. You got to move those nails, make sure they're pointed down. Some of these guys have never done physical labor before. Some of these ladies have never had to go out there and do demolition or do some of the stuff that we've asked them, they were asking them to do. We need to slow down and make sure we're giving them proper training and proper direction to make sure that we're creating a safe work environment. And again, that safe work environment, if people know that they're not going to get hurt, they're going to be more productive. And it is proven that they're going to work faster and more efficiently if they have safety measures in place, because they have a higher level of confidence. And this goes back to production. So that's something to keep in mind. Increased business expenses. As people get hurt, of course, there's medical bills that hit the back end that you may not see day to day that have, and this again goes back to training, make sure we're working safe. What about customer damage? What about driving backing into mailboxes or breaking something because we're not handling it properly? We all have examples of that. We can all probably, every one of you guys could probably throw something out there that happened within the last couple of weeks of somebody that just didn't know how to handle something and it broke. Accidents happen. But the more that we provide training on how properly to do things, the more likely people are going to be able to decrease customer damage and just decrease the back end expenses associated with lack of training. The last thing, loss of customers. And this kind of goes back to what Tom was saying a few minutes ago with Caterpillar. That safety guy automatically was like, what are you guys doing? You don't have your SDS. You don't have all your stuff. We work with a lot of different companies that safety is a high priority, and we're moving our our level of acceptance in regard to safety higher and higher every single month. We need to get to that level so that when we're servicing customers, that they have confidence in us. The more confidence they have in us, the more jobs they're going to give us. The more they're going to tell their peers about how good we're doing. Going back to that Caterpillar situation, I'd be willing to bet that he didn't just keep that to himself. I'm sure he told his boss, and he may even told other safety people at other companies, yeah, they kind of didn't have their stuff together. It took them a little while to get it, but they got it, but it was a little slow at the start. So the more that we can improve our training all the way across the board, all the way around, the more we're going to be able to sell, the more revenue we're going to have, the more we can hire more people to kind of keep growing this company and keep moving in an upward direction and creating more opportunities for everybody within the company. So this last thing I'm going to kind of end this with, as far as me being on my soapbox in regards to training, is this is a question that I've heard numerous times, is what happens if you train your people and they leave? We spend all this time, we pay for OSHA training for you guys. We pay for IICRC training for our employees and you guys. All this takes time and it takes money. And what happens if we do this and then you just leave and go to a competitor or just get out of the industry altogether? I want to tie onto that and say, forget about the time and effort we put in the front end. What happens if you train employees and they stay? What is that going to do as a cancer for people not being happy, people not being productive, people getting injured and affect us on the back end? So think about this. What happens if you train your people and they leave? But more importantly, what happens if you don't train your people and they stay? All right, so I'm going to kind of recap real quick on our homework assignment. Again, make sure that we're rolling out this hazardous communication awareness as soon as we get the online program up and running. I will notify you. I actually got a call from somebody that was specifically asking me questions about that program. So it is in the middle of production as we speak. Make sure we get a list. The sooner we can get a list of chemicals from you guys, the sooner we can get our bmscat.com/SDS updated so that we can make sure we have an accurate list for all you guys. And don't forget about your JHAs that we need 4 JHAs for the month. All right. So I'm going to stop right there. Actually, real quick before I do. Next month, again, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to continue on this hazardous communication rollout, and we're going to kind of review and kind of make sure that we're catching up and making sure everything we've put into place over the last 6-7 months, that we maintain this momentum and we're not just rolling stuff out and forgetting about it. We're going to circle back around on all this stuff next month. That being said, I want to open it up to any questions. If you guys have any questions, you can chime in any chat. Please take your phone off of mute. I'm happy to answer them. And if there's any RVPs or anybody else that wants to make a comment, I'm going to open it up for you guys for a second. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say something real quick. Great job on the presentation. The secondary labeling has always been a question for years and years and years, going from marked to a spray bottle and what the parameters of such are. So that's going to be fantastic. Just a great job, Colin, Tom, Crystal, and the rest of the committee on putting this together and striving for safety. It's paramount, especially in the business that we're in, the sense of urgency that we do things. So great job. I will tell you, it hit home when I saw the OSHA infractions ranked and fall protection being one. As an ops manager for many, many years and a general manager, I got hit 3 times for such. And it's centered around accessing roofs and, for cleaning air handlers and doing work on the roof, 2 stories down, and how you access them and parapet walls and the containment on the roof that is necessary. So that hit home to me. That's the one I thought would be tops. And 2 out of the 3 was a OSHA inspector driving home and just happened to look over and see our accessing and really hit home for us. So something that we really need to do, and just make sure on the homework that we're getting in and we're making sure that we complete that. It's paramount that we do that, and just great direction on this. Proud of y'all, and every day keep your eyes out and look and train your people. And real good comment on training and what they if they leave, Colin, and the training and staying and the cost it'll save and protecting the employees. So good job today.
Thank you, Mark. So one of the questions, and this brings up a valid point probably for several of you guys, we have people that are new to being to safety advocacy, whether it be from new people being put into positions as a safety advocate, or as we're including companies like Jarvis and FireDex and some of these other companies that we have that are joining our team. So this goes back to my point earlier. I forget what is common knowledge because I use a terminology all the time that I don't always explain things completely. So if you have questions, ask. And one of the questions was, what is a JHA, job hazard analysis? Those that are new to the program, actually what I'm going to be focusing on over the next week or so is creating training to get you up to speed. Most of the people on this call have been part of these calls for since February when we had our first call. And so those that are new and this is your first meeting, I realize that you guys are behind the 8 ball. So no worries on that. Know that there will be training being developed, and we will either be having additional webinars for you guys or trying to create some additional training that you guys can do online so you can get caught up and understand the importance of a job hazard analysis and how to physically do it and what our expectations are. So it's not a bad question. It's great that you guys are asking. This is why we want you guys interacting, especially with the chat box. All right, so last opportunity for anybody to ask any more questions. All right, guys. As always, you can reach out to me. You reach out to Tom Snow. Reach out to Crystal. We're here to support you guys. This is what we're here for. So anything that we can do, you just want to chit chat, give us a call. That's what we're here to help. And I appreciate everybody's time today and looking forward to continuing to build this safety acronym and safety culture that we're creating. You guys have a great day. Be safe out there, and we will talk to you everybody soon.
Good job, Colin.